Why Did I Get Married? One of the few Tyler Perry movies that gets plays in my household. A comedic romance film that follows couples in a friend group attending their annual couples retreat to work on their marriages. While hilarious, there are overtly harmful and problematic themes throughout. Digging into all of them would have y'all sat here for hours, so today I've decided to focus on the couple I feel gets the least amount of scrutiny, Terry and Diane. This couple perfectly encapsulates messaging Tyler Perry constantly inserts into his work. Through their dynamic, Tyler Perry highlights patriarchal society's desire to keep women in their place by painting the picture of Diane as a monstrous, deceitful career woman, neglectful of her poor, sweet husband who has been fighting for their marriage alone. But Tyler Perry, you cannot trick me.
You cannot trick me! You cannot trick me!
What is patriarchy? Put simply, patriarchy is a system where cis men hold primary power and authority. A system where cis men exercise control in public and private/domestic spheres.
Girl don't do nothing. She don't cook, don't clean, don't take the garbage out. She just don't.
Patriarchal ideology perpetuates the idea that gender inequality is natural, deeming cis men as inherently suited for leadership and power, while delegating cis women and other gender identities as subordinate. It places women in the domestic sphere. Within a patriarchal society, patriarchal ideology is deeply ingrained, seeping into all facets of life, woven into the very fabric of society, the social, political, economic. It's quite literally in the air you breathe. Diane is a perfect example of a woman existing within a patriarchal society who does not fit into the mold of what a woman should be, yet is socialized/coerced to fit her square ass into a circle. Diane is a successful lawyer who recently made partner, her making partner the point she can trace back to the shift in dynamic with Terry. Color me unsurprised. Within patriarchal society, women are expected to devote themselves to the domestic sphere, their home, husband, and children. Even if you're a woman with career aspirations, within patriarchy, you're expected to place them secondary to domestic labor. Diane, however, is a woman who prioritizes her career, a clear deviation from what a woman is expected to be. She deviates even further when she asserts she does not want to have another child. Questions can be raised on whether or not Diane wanted to be a mother at all, as she admits herself that her daughter was a compromise. Given her reluctance to have children and the ways children and childbearing were pressured onto her, seen through Terry's continuous badgering about having another child, that I can already assume mirrors what happened with their first, and her friend Patricia's bird-brained advice that the movie strives to make me believe are words of wisdom. I'd be hard-pressed to believe outside the constraints of patriarchy, Diane would be a mother. Diane's career aspirations, priorities, presence, or lack thereof in the domestic sphere, particularly when it comes to presence in her daughter's life, are all reflective of her inability to fit into this mold of a woman, of a wife, and a mother. Yet Terry is destined to forcefully shape her into the perfect wife all the same. Sister, the wool's been pulled.
You know, since I made partner, he's been so different.
It's wholly unsurprising that someone like Terry, a misogynist shaped and aligned with patriarchy, would exhibit a shift in behavior when Diane made partner, because Diane's career achievements conflict with his perception of what woman and a wife should be. While we aren't privy to the intimate inner workings of their relationship prior to them on the road to the cabin, there are ample breadcrumbs and contextual clues revealing that while Terry may have shifted outwardly, ain't nothing shifted internally when it comes to that man. There's something to be said about Terry having achieved his dream of owning a private practice first, while Diane only recently realized her own dreams of making partner. It's not difficult to draw conclusions about who exactly bore the brunt of sacrifices in their relationship, given their current stages in their careers, and factoring in Diane's reluctant agreement to have a child earlier than she had planned. Listen, I don't know much about algebra, but I know 1 + 1 = 2, no Beyonce. Based on Diane's observations, Terry's sudden shift in behavior assumes he supported her career aspirations up till a certain point. Now, Diane, sister, I'm gonna need you to hold my hand when I tell you you've had the wool pulled from over your eyes. Looking at a man as subsumed in patriarchy and willing to inflict patriarchal violence against his wife before the present day events of the film, such as pressuring her to have children, which also drums up issues around consent and sexual coercion in their marriage, I can definitively say Terry never supported her career. He managed it. He could handle her career when it wasn't sacrificing her being subservient. After all, she was someone who could be coerced into shelving their career to have a child. Terry made peace with her career because Diane's actions portrayed her capability to prioritize the domestic above all, while also reflecting the control he held in the relationship and the inherent power dynamics enforced by patriarchy. However, Diane making partner and her firm stance against having another child set off alarm bells in Terry's head, because it revealed a shift in priorities. Diane is now operating in a position outside of his control with just a little too much autonomy for his liking. And so, in order to mold her back into the woman he desires her to be, Terry changes his behavior towards her, employing manipulative and control tactics to force her back into that subservient position. Controlla. Through manipulation and control, Terry attempts to wear Diane down in hopes that public belittling and embarrassment will shame her into the woman he wants her to be. From their first appearance on screen, Terry makes it clear that his issue with Diane lies in her inability to prioritize sex of her life the way she ought to under patriarchal norms.
You're doing these drive-by meetings with our daughter.
The words Terry exclaims as he and Diane are en route to the couple's retreat. He gripes at Diane's inability to make time for him, while making a dig at her capabilities as a mother by describing the alleged abysmal time she does spend with her daughter as drive-by meetings. If I wasn't so focused on his aim to hurt and shame her, I'd almost be impressed by his ability to call into question her capability as a wife and mother so succinctly. During their car ride from hell, Diane's secretary Monica calls her as she's working on an important case. The minute Terry clocks she's taken a work call, he interrupts her loudly and repeatedly, urging her to get off the phone. The blatant disrespect he showcases during this scene shows one of the control tactics he utilizes against her, something Diane herself is aware of.
You and your control issues.
Control. Diane, don't start.
By verbally chastising her picking up the work call, loud enough for Monica to hear, he's attempting to fluster and embarrass her in front of a coworker to get her to drop the call. By calling her out through public airing of her failings as a wife and dissent in their relationship, Diane might drop the call prematurely to save face and think twice before picking up future work calls around him. He pulls the same tactic in front of their friends on separate occasions, when their group is eating breakfast and when they're all seated for dinner at the dining table.
I don't know if my wife will be able to make it, though. She probably has to check her BlackBerry to see if she'll be available.
During all of these instances, Terry is publicly vocalizing tension in their marriage while chastising Diane for her shortcomings as a wife, underscoring Diane as the reason for the dissent in their relationship. He's purposefully making these public comments to embarrass her by highlighting her as the problem, while attempting to silence her voice by warning her through these public displays of embarrassment what will meet her if she doesn't fall in line. Through these tactics, Terry attempts to seize back the control he feels he has a right to in their relationship. He's putting her in her place publicly to place her in a subservient and submissive role in their relationship and to reassert his dominance. This is the type of shit that over time might carve Diane down into a submissive wife who no longer stays ready with rebuttals and arguments, but does as told, the wife that Terry so clearly desires. While Diane calls out his control issues when he first interrupts her call with Monica, throughout the story, you see the narrative focus on Diane's faults and her role in provoking these tactics from Terry by being a neglectful partner who doesn't prioritize their relationship. Little onus, if any, is placed on Terry and the manipulative tactics he engages in to control Diane. Terry's control and manipulation reflect his perception of who, or rather, what he perceives Diane and women at large to be: possessions. Constantly, his actions and words strip Diane of her personhood and autonomy, transforming her from person to possession. Throughout the film, Terry has been harping on Diane not spending time with him and her reluctance around having another child. For Terry, the retreat up the mountain serves as an opportune time for them to get down and dirty to try for another kid, which he aims to do their first night. However, upon learning that her friend Sheila has to trek up the mountain alone when her whack-ass husband Mike shows up with no Sheila on his arm, but rather Sheila's supposed friend Trina gripping up his arm, Diane ain't exactly in the mood for any type of action in the sheets. That doesn't stop Terry from trying though.
One of my best friends is out there in the middle of nowhere and you're trying to have sex? No, move.
Terry's willingness to overlook Diane's clear frustration and concern over Sheila's situation in order to get freaky deaky reflects his priorities in their relationship and the lack of value he places on her feelings. Attempting to sleep with her in this moment while blatantly minimizing her feelings shows the neglect of Diane's personhood. He does not care about Diane's feelings or about Diane being visibly upset about her friend being stuck in a shitty relationship with an ain't shit man. Diane, reverse the camera on that. The lack of steps he makes to show empathy or care towards Diane in this moment only further emphasizes the fact that he doesn't care about her as a person. In this moment and their overall relationship, he sees Diane as an object, a means to fulfill desires and objectives he has for himself. Feelings and personhood be damned. Since we're talking about sex, let's really dig into it. Specifically, sex and bodily autonomy. Bodily autonomy being an ability to exercise authority over decisions made about one's body, including but not limited to reproductive decisions. See, making decisions around contraceptives, bearing children, and sex. Terry and Diane's relationship serves as a perfect example of the ways with which women's right to bodily autonomy is restricted and controlled by men in patriarchal society. During one of their several arguments in the film, Diane asked Terry,
"Okay, what is this really about?"
Terry has been harping on and on about how Diane is neglectful of both him and their daughter, but this conversation reveals the neglect he's feeling from his wife stems from a lack of sex, and as you learn later in the film, an inability for her to show up when it comes to domestic labor. Terry simply wants another child and is upset with Diane because she refuses to relent and give him one. His complaints around her presence aren't framed around her not being physically present, outside domestic labor, or emotionally engaged. It's simply the lack of sex, something he believes he has a right to because Diane is his wife, evidenced by him asking,
We've been here 2 days, honey. When do you think you'll be ready?
There's no choice. It's not a matter of if they're going to have sex or children, or if Diane even desires either. It's simply a matter of when. Terry's bioessentialist assertions regarding Diane's seeming proclivity to childbearing and sex undermine Diane's bodily autonomy. When she's unable to give him the answer he wants, he ends the conversation, because for Terry, there's nothing else to discuss. Later in the film, Diane's right to bodily autonomy is denied once again when Mike's trifling ass reveals that Diane had her tubes tied after having their first child, CANNUH. Should Diane have told Terry about getting her tubes tied? The jury's still out on that for me personally. In a perfect world, I would say she should have, but let the record show, that's all I'm saying that conversation should have been. Terry, I'm planning on getting my tubes tied. Diane desperately does not want no more kids. She struggled with the decision to have her first, as evidenced by her opting to tie her tubes immediately after. In the end, it's her body, and she has a right to do with it as she sees fit. I'm hard-pressed to believe divulging her plans to tie her tubes would be met with anything other than Terry undermining her bodily autonomy by attempting to talk her out of her decision through pressure and manipulation. If anything, Diane tying her tubes and hiding it from Terry contextually highlights her awareness that she is in a relationship with a manipulative man who has shown time and time again he gives zero damns about her feelings. So she sought out an alternative route to protect herself, knotting up them tubes. If her decision to tie her tubes is something they can't resolve in their relationship, whether she divulged it or not, well,
That's too damn bad!
ended. The tumultuous argument Terry and Diane have when they're back from the retreat really reveals Terry's whole misogynistic, manipulative ass slip. Diane forgetting Terry's birthday is what stokes the flames of an already volatile situation. And yes, Diane, sister girl, you are trifling for forgetting that man's birthday. And yes, it may or may not expose where he's placed on your list of priorities. As someone who struggles remembering important dates myself, especially when I'm busy, that's what a calendar and planner are for. Sure, it's possible to forget important dates amidst a busy schedule, but I know you don't be missing important dates at work because you prioritize it. You're just gonna have to eat this L. Unfortunately, it's so hard for me to even admit Diane's fault because this nigga and his mustache and passive-aggressive misogynistic ass stay pissing me off.
It's all right, love. You remember what you want to remember.
Does he even deserve a birthday celebration? When Diane returns home apologizing for forgetting his birthday, she finds him celebrating at home with his secretary, Pam. She immediately directs anger and adultery accusations at Terry and Pam, asking him,
Thank you.
Oh, are you two having an affair?
Diane devolving into this frantic, abrasive woman with this vim for Sister Pam. Diane, let's focus on what's on our plate, please. I struggle to rationalize this sudden obsession over the idea of Terry having an affair with Pam and abrasive behavior displayed by Diane. Up to this point, when faced with blatant disrespect and manipulation from Terry, Diane has been the picture of calm and poised. Yet when Sister Pam enters the cut, suddenly there's a shift in temperament. I'm still chewing on whether this is mischaracterization or simply indicative of how women are socialized to engage with women perceived as threatening their position in a relationship or taking their man. I am leaning towards the latter though. During their preceding argument, as they walk around the house and Terry checks in on their daughter who's asleep, he lists examples of Diane being neglectful to their daughter. Take a picture because this is the only time you're going to see their daughter. This 5-second cameo indicative of the gravity or lack thereof society places on child neglect and mistreatment, if you ask me. But from Terry's bullet points, you gather it is Sister Pam who has tutored CANNUH, gone to her recitals, and picked her up from school twice when Diane forgot to pick her up. Terry's accusations expose Diane's neglect of her daughter and his own. I need both of their asses to do better when it comes to being present parents for their daughter because it's CANNUH who's shouldering the brunt of this mess. Their argument continues, growing more heated as they head into their bedroom. It's at this moment Terry shows his whole misogynistic ass when he says,
I have been begging you to spend some time with me. What kind of man has to make an appointment to sleep with his wife?
Whoop, there it is. Once again, Terry is revealing that he doesn't really give a damn about Diane being neglectful of their daughter. He's pissed off because his wife refuses to put her career on the back burner, once again, get on her back, and pop out a son for him. He goes on later to exclaim,
How about doing what a wife does, screwing me on a regular? Can you handle that?
What more is there to say? He's clearly verbalizing where Diane's presence is truly lacking and what he believes the role of a wife is. Through her refusal to sleep with him and denying him another child, Diane is failing to fulfill her role as wife, and it infuriates him to no end. That and her inability to show up in the domestic sphere when during a back and forth in their argument, he harps on about her baking him a cake for his birthday.
How about the obvious? How about baking a cake for my birthday or spending some time with me?
Terry opting to use the verb baking rather than buying or getting further highlights his ideas of what a wife is and does. Baking a cake is something that requires more labor. The act of baking is tied to more traditional concepts of what a wife should be. He wants a homemaker, a wife who is more I saw Diane up in that kitchen in the cabin trying to look busy. What about her gives she bake you a cake? Terry himself is well aware of this fact, yet he's determined to manipulate and denigrate her into the woman he desires her to be, which he proceeds to do when he calls her selfish for getting her tubes tied and states,
Diane, when you get married, you give up the eyes for us, okay? You don't make those kind of decisions without talking to me.
Yet Terry's words and actions throughout this film have shown that truly, when Diane got married, she gave up the eyes for him. Terry ends the argument on a predictably manipulative note by threatening to move out.
But I'm about to lose my wife. I'm moving out.
Sister, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. This whole performance in and of itself is manipulative, and if you don't believe me, maybe you'll believe it coming straight from the jackass's mouth.
Man, I'm going back to, right now, I'm teaching her a lesson.
The lesson being that this is what happens when you fall out of line. I leave. Unfortunately, Diane is gripped up by the patriarchy herself and unable to understand that she doesn't need this man, so she falls hook, line, and sinker for his emotionally manipulative tactics. Patriarchy Princess. I would be remiss if I didn't delve into another villain in Diane's life, who is all too familiar in the lives of women around the globe. An enemy of progress, a princess of patriarchy, a matron of misogyny, a champion of chauvinism, Dr. Patricia fucking Agnew.
Ew, she makes me sick.
Patricia and her constant fuck-ass advice. The kind of friend flaunting like they got the best intentions for you, yet their guidance and solutions are so entrenched in patriarchy, centered around men and how best to serve as a crutch and pillar for them at your own detriment.
You told my secretary not to call me this week. Girl, the man is just looking out for you. You're on vacation, Diane.
Take, for example, when the girls are out shopping and Patricia offers advice to Diane about her issues with Terry.
All he talks about is having a son, and I don't want to. Oh, decompromise.
Whether she means to or not, Patricia harping on about Diane compromising with Terry by having another child is part of the socializing and societal pressuring that occurs against women, contributing to a denial of rights and bodily autonomy, forcing women to remain in unhappy and abusive situations. Later on in the film, after her last argument with Terry, Patricia is once again chastising Diane about her refusal to be vulnerable with Terry. She pushes Diane to have a conversation with Terry and let him know about how
This is the reason why they're so upset at you, because you haven't been truthful with them. Tell them how you want them to hold you at night and how you're afraid for them to leave you.
I could fucking scream. What are we talking about here? We've jumped right past addressing the issue of how Diane and Terry are quite literally misaligned when it comes to their future vision of their family, and somehow we've landed at a fear of having your man leave you. Honestly, it's a fitting landing for the wayward messaging of the film, because that's all it boils down to, a desire to keep a man even at the expense of yourself. And of course, Patricia assigns Diane some whack-ass assignment to list out the pros and cons of her man, and next thing we know, Diane is slobbering all over her $1,000 steering wheel at the 3 nice things she managed to scrounge together about Terry on that list. I'm over it.
She can carry it.
Patriarchy and possession. That's really all it boils down to for me when it comes to Terry and Diane's relationship. Patriarchy and possession. 2 concepts that have wreaked havoc on their relationship and family, resulting in Diane perpetuating harm in her daughter's life. Because, yes mamas, it is giving neglect with a hint of in-house deadbeat. Terry, the patriarchal misogynist trying to take control of Diane's life and uterus. He's most certainly the front runner for villain in Diane and arguably his child's life. You witness Terry being an agent of patriarchy, his alignment and upholding of patriarchy leading to his inevitable misogyny and spurring his harmful ideologies of a woman's place and his preconceived right to control and possession of his wife. Diane, on the other hand, is both victim and perpetrator of harm. Her inability to break free of patriarchy, leaving her victim to a misogynistic husband and a perpetrator of harm in her household when it pertains to their daughter.
And what are you
Let me just say this, please. I am wrong. I am so wrong for not telling you. And I've just taken you for granted. And I'll do anything. I'll do whatever it takes so that you can just come home.
Having Diane apologize at the end of their story hammers down Tyler Perry's messaging that having a man, regardless of how misogynistic, controlling, or how little he cares about your autonomy and desires, is worth everything at the end of the day. No accountability or apology is offered on Terry's end for his actions and wrongdoings. The onus of the deterioration of their relationship falls solely on Diane's shoulders. Girl, goodbye. Whether Tyler Perry meant to or not, spoiler, he didn't, the conclusion of this film reflects how patriarchal society molds women to seek out men as the solution, even when all signs point to them being the common denominator in your misery and are screaming at you to run.